Right. So for my viewers, I wanted to do something of a different kind of video format from what I usually do. I wanted to pivot away from the political commentary and bashing about on reform that I usually do on my channel. And I wanted to switch things up. As I said, in 2026, I wanted to start up new projects. And I decided to do an interview today on my channel with one of the leaders in Advance. He's part of the leadership team in Advance. He's one of the senior members of Advance, if I can call it that. And I spoke with him in Manchester during one of Advance UK's events. He's come on to Andy the Cabby show. He came on to Momus Najmi, I believe, a few months ago, and also most recently Andrew Eborn. And I was quite impressed with the way that he carried himself and the knowledge and expertise that he can lend onto Advance UK. So I thought, why not bring him on? He's had the privilege of landing onto my channel. This is my first interview that I'm doing on this channel, so please be civil and don't be too hateful. Don't spread hurty words on the comment section down below. You never know if one of Starmer's troopers could arrest and imprison you, and you have to wait 3.5 years until Ben Habib becomes Prime Minister before you're released. So you have been warned. So, without further ado, I'd like to present you Edward Oakenfull. Edward, how are you doing today?
Absolutely fantastic, and it's a real privilege to be on your show, Adrian.
Yeah. So, Edward, I just wanted to, behind the scenes, I've introduced myself to you. So I wanted you to sort of talk about your background, how you got into politics. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Edward. Your upbringing. I know you were born and bred in Derbyshire. What are your personal interests? What brought you into politics in the first place? I know we're going to touch a little bit about reform. I'm sure you have a lot of positive things to say about your experience in reform. What is your role in Advance UK? What is your area of expertise in Advance?
Well, just a lot of questions there all at once. Just to go back to the start. Born in Derbyshire, lived here pretty much most of my life. My parents were self-employed business people, and during the 1970s, when we had an awful Labour government that was taxing everything that moved, pretty much like we do now, they just got so sick of how the country was being run into the ground. Nothing worked. We were the sick man of Europe. We were called at the time because half the economy was on strike, and it just wasn't worth being in business. My parents emigrated, and we went to live in Southern Ireland. This is when I was just a young boy, and I was educated in a convent in Castletownbere, and taught by the nuns, and they were the strictest teachers going. I had to work so hard, and there's no excuses about not putting your homework in on time. So, which at that time, it was difficult. You had to work so hard, but looking back on it, it made me what I am today. Is hardworking and very driven in everything that I do. From an incredible grounding there. Then moving on to the 1979, early 80s, Margaret Thatcher got into power and started rowing back on all these socialist measures that had been introduced during the 1970s. Free market reforms were introduced, taxes massively lowered, and people were encouraged to start up businesses again. So my parents came back to this country and went into business. One of my first jobs was waiting tables. So I've started right at the bottom and worked my way up. Really, I was an estate agent managing several offices in the East Midlands during my early years of being employed. That then gravitated to buying lots of properties. I was right at the start of the buy-to-let property boom, and I became quite a major landlord within the East Midlands, having a lot of properties, which the cash flow for that gave me the money to be able to invest in my first love, finance, investment, my share portfolio. And just being a long-term investor in great companies. Warren Buffett is one of my idols in business.
Okay.
And from a little snowball, I rolled my snowball along, and it became bigger and bigger, and just became more successful, really. Then it all came crashing down in 2008 when we had a credit crunch, and more money was going out from my business than was actually coming in. I was on the verge of bankruptcy, but then the Bank of England started cutting interest rates aggressively. That saved me from bankruptcy, and been pretty successful ever since. Although during the 14 years of misrule of this Conservative government, we had a terrible, terrible Chancellor, George Osborne, who introduced truly draconian measures against landlords. Brought in all sorts. I mean, I almost think when George Osborne was younger, he must have had a bad experience with the landlords, because he brought in so much horrible legislation that started destroying a whole industry, the buy-to-let property rental market. And I knew that was the time was up. So over the last 10, 15 years, I've been gradually selling off most of my property portfolio. The final nails have been knocked into the rental market coffin by this truly awful socialist entity that we have at the moment. And Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor, bringing in this renters' rights bill, which is just destroying the whole industry and leaving landlords with no option but to sell up, which is creating a massive shortage of rental properties. There's almost nothing to rent, which is pushing up rents. So tenants are suffering because of these useless socialists that have brought in these terrible measures. So to the back end of your set of questions, the reason I got involved in politics is because I just love my country, and I despair for how things have gone so badly wrong. We had those awful years of Tony Blair bringing in some terrible legislation, which I. And following on from that, 14 years of Conservative rule, which was just a further continuation of Tony Blair's rule. They didn't row back on any of the terrible laws that were brought in. I thought I had to try and do something. Rather than shouting at the television and getting annoyed about things, I thought I'd actually try and I'd put my head above the parapet and make a stand and try and get elected and try and change things for the better for our country, having seen how badly wrong we've gone. I joined Reform. I was part of Reform from the very, very early days, way before Nigel Farage ever got involved in it. And it was a fabulous grassroots movement. Free speech. We could talk about anything. We built up the party from 3-4% in the polls. I stood in the general election in Derbyshire Dales. However, just before the general election, live on Question Time on television, Nigel Farage got presented by Fiona Bruce with some tweets that I'd made a year or so ago that Richard Tice and Gawain Towler, the head of communications, they all knew about. They were fine with it. But because Nigel Farage was under so much pressure live on television in front of a live audience, he just caved in and said that, Edward Oakenfull's going to be sacked from the party. And I was effectively sacked less than a week to go before the general election. My name was still on the ballot papers, so I still polled, and I did well. I got 15% of the vote in one of the safest Conservative seats in the whole country, 7,728 votes, which I'm just eternally grateful and just humbled that 7,728 people have cast a vote for little old me, really. And so after the general election, Reform carried on doing really well. Nigel Farage, absolutely brilliant orator. Mohammed Zia Youssef put in some good practices, but he also carried on getting rid of grassroots people. Literally hundreds of people have been taken out of Reform ever since the general election, replaced with often conservatives that have got our country into this mess. So how are these people ever going to get us out again? People that are just looking after their own careers. So I really don't rate the management structure of Reform. There are some good people still left in there, but they're terrified to even say or do anything, because it's very much a totalitarian party. Everything is run from head office. They have to do as they're told, no ifs or buts. Anything different, and you're thrown out of the party. Since then, Ben Habib, who was also thrown out of, I think he resigned from Reform. Rupert Lowe as well. We all know about Rupert Lowe. But Ben Habib has actually done something about it and set up his own political party called Advance UK, which is grounded in firm foundations. What do Reform really stand for? Do they stand for high taxes, low taxes? Do they stand for more regulation, less regulation? Where do they really stand on immigration? We've heard lots of sound bites, but Advance UK are really grounded in foundations. We believe in the total nation state. Northern Ireland has been treated way different from the rest of the United Kingdom after the Brexit negotiations. Effectively, there's a border down the North Sea. This should not be the same. Northern Ireland should be exactly the same as the rest of our country. Freedom of speech has been eroded everywhere we look, with the things we can and can't say, especially with new legislation coming in to do with digital misinformation and things like this. Truly terrifying. Democracy and accountability. So much power from our elected representatives in Westminster has been devolved into, they call them quangos. These are organizations that are given often hundreds of millions of pounds by government to go away and make regulations. And these quangos are not elected. They're not accountable to anybody. We're also tied up in things like the European Court of Human Rights, which we need to leave these sort of organizations and get our country back. And our judges in this country should be making the rules, not foreign judges. There's also equality under the law. The 2010 Equalities Act has given certain communities more say than other communities. This should not be right. I think justice should be blind and everybody should be treated equal. So these are the firm foundations of Advance UK that I passionately believe in, and will be pursuing them with all my might, really. So that's a little bit about myself and how I got involved in politics there, Adrian.
Yeah, sure. That was very detailed. Yeah, great. And what are you doing in Advance UK right now? Are you? What's your role, Edward?
I'd like to think I'm really good with numbers. I've always loved facts and figures, and my A levels were maths with statistics. So I absolutely adore numbers, and I see numbers everywhere. My whole business was all about numbers and borrowing money at X% and getting a return of Y% on my money. My share investments are often not mathematical calculations, but very much a numbers man. So that's led me to I've been a treasurer with many organisations, and so I was just honoured to be asked to be the treasurer for Advance UK, and I still am to this day the treasurer for Advance UK.
Brilliant. Treasurer Advance. Okay.
Yeah. Looking after the money.
Yeah, that's it. Good with the numbers. So since you're interested in how the political party is financed, I'm sure you're very interested in how the country is financed, or is financed abysmally, terribly, in fact, under not just the Labour government, but the Tory government as well. So tell me this, Edward. I'm not sure if you've heard about this factual statement. The UK's average GDP per capita is lower than the poorest state of America, that being Mississippi. So from your observation of the United Kingdom, how have we, of the British economy, how have we ended up like this, Edward?
And it didn't used to be that. Mississippi, which is the poorest state in America, back in 2008, Britain was much wealthier per capita, dividing the actual gross domestic product, which is a collection of everything that we make and produce in this country, divided by the actual population. And yeah, it's. I think one of the reasons is because of mass uncontrolled immigration. We've allowed pretty much anybody to come to this country. Anybody with no skills whatsoever, often can't read or write. The British public have been completely misled by academia, politicians for many decades over this. It's only just being revealed by the Office for Budget Responsibility, the OBR, that a young person coming to this country in their 20s with very little skills will be a massive £450,000 on average. We're talking averages, massive net drain over their lifetime. So we've imported massive unskilled people to this country that have lowered that GDP per capita figure. We've also shot ourselves in the foot with our headlong diving into net zero. Our energy costs are some of the highest energy costs in the whole world. How can a manufacturing business produce in this country goods, services in this country, manufacture goods in this country? How can they produce with often 4 times the cost for energy as America or China have? So no wonder we're having our solar panels and most of our windmills are being. We can't make the steel for the windmills anymore in this country. It's unproductive. We have to export those carbon emissions to China, that's putting up a coal-fired power station every week for its cheap energy to be able to produce all this. Then we ship it back to this country on diesel-powered boats. So the whole energy policy is completely insane. I live in Derby, near Derby in the Midlands. Rolls-Royce just recently, because of the high energy costs, the prohibitively high energy costs, are having to set up a whole division now in Texas for their new division of aero engines that they're going to be manufacturing, rather than in Derby. And several thousands of high-paid jobs won't be created in Derby. They're going to be created in another country. So absolutely crazy policies like that. We've also scared away lots of rich entrepreneurs, successful people with our crazy high tax policies. This was started under the Conservatives, and it's been further exacerbated under this terrible socialist Labour government, increasing taxes to businesses, telling firms that they have to pay an incredibly high minimum wage, which is against the market rate. It has put so many businesses out of business. So much capital has left the country because of these disastrous government policies. We talked about some of the quangos. We are so heavily regulated in this country. For most people, it's just not worth starting a business. Why bother? Welfare for a lot of people almost pays too much money. So all this coupled together is created. We are getting poorer as a nation. GDP per capita since I think 1998 has fallen every year. We've been in a massive recession. If you look at the GDP per capita, this is how diabolically run our country has been for these last couple of decades.
Sure. Yeah, given that you've described the kind of destruction that a lot of these governments over the past decades have caused to the British economy, maybe if we could bring in Advance UK, the political party, on the British economy. What do you think the British economy should look like, and what kind of economic landscape do you envision the UK would display under an Advance Party-led government?
Policies will be announced in due course, and we have this unique college system that we have. These are super intelligent people that have achieved incredible things in their life, that are debating this. I personally would like to see a slashing of government. government is, we have 550,000 civil servants now. This is 50,000 more civil servants than during the COVID crisis. Why do we need so many bureaucrats that are just expanding their departments? These are well-paid people in fantastic offices, often central London, with fabulous pensions. There is so much. I think previous Home Secretaries have said that the civil service could be halved, and you'd almost see no difference in productivity. So there are too big a government. I would like to see a massive slashing of government costs. So much wastage across the board. I would also like a foreign aid to be obliterated. We should be spending this money at home. I don't believe we should be. It's completely unproven that we're sending this money to some of these countries around the world, and what good has it done? Some of these countries positively hate our country. So foreign aid, I think that should be slashed. I think as I say, the civil service, there is just so much wastage within government. There's so much regulation that could be cut. I think taxes, we should be incentivizing people. We looked at your situation. You're from Hong Kong, John Cowperthwaite. He got rid of so much regulation and allowed the market to dictate and allowed people to build businesses. He wrote, people that got up in the morning and worked their socks off and worked hard got to keep their own money. I believe that people working are best placed to spend their own money, and should not, the least amount of money possible should be sent to government and politicians to spend their own money for them. So yeah, a much smaller state, Adrian, and a much lower tax base for companies and for people themselves, for individuals. Getting rid of so much regulation. That's what I would like to see the thrust of Advance UK's economic policy. I think the welfare state that we've set up in this country, when it was first set up, it was a safety net, and that's what it should be. But it's morphed into a whole way of life. We have generations of families now that have never worked. For a lot of people, why bother working? Why bother getting yourself acquiring skills and working hard when welfare pays more? So again, I would like to see a massive rebalancing between welfare and work, and making work properly pay, yeah, so that just some ideas I have that I'm sure Advance will be announcing ideas very shortly.
Sure, yeah. So you've listed a lot of things that need to be cut: government spending, the welfare state, foreign aid, taxes that are unnecessary, I think. Maybe let's bring in the topic of the minimum tax threshold and personal allowance. What would Advance UK do? Would it raise it? It's currently 12,570. That's the lowest tax threshold. What would Advance UK do with that?
I can't speak for Advance because there will be announcements. Personally, when I was with Reform, I thought one of their best policies was to have a minimum allowance of £20,000 before you actually earn any tax at all. Why bother taxing low earners for them then to claim it back in some sort of credit, which just increases the bureaucracy? Why not just allow people £20,000 and they don't have to pay any tax at all? Taking it off them and then regurgitating it is just so wasteful. So I would personally like to see the allowance raised massively to that sort of amount. And it would be fully costed, because I think that would then incentivize people to get off welfare and go and get a job. And, as if by magic, they get to keep their own money up to the first £20,000 before they start paying taxes on it. But Reform have kind of backtracked on that. Apparently now it's just an aspiration. I would like to see it as a definite policy announcement for Advance UK to take that policy up.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm self-employed myself, so I'd love to see 20,000 appearing on my tax accounts. That's for sure.
Just on that, when I was younger, my wife and myself, we would have loved to have had more children. There's this big debate at the moment that people aren't having enough children. Indigenous people aren't having enough children, which is very, very true. But if we lowered taxes and allowed people to keep more of their own money, I think there will be a lot more families like myself back then that would have had more children, and we wouldn't need to even think about bringing in so many people from abroad to do some of these jobs. The population would grow naturally. And in countries like Hungary, they've got a very aggressive policy where they incentivize people to have children, and if you've got more than 3 children, there's almost no tax to pay for your lifetime. So again, it could all be rebalanced through the tax policy if there was a will by government.
Sure, yeah. I mean, this current government, it operates literally under a socialist kind of style of governing.
They're doing exactly the opposite of what I think they should be doing.
Yeah, and from what I've been told, I mean, socialism is basically the state taking your money away and giving it to someone you don't know, whereas free market capitalism would be you lose, you can lose your money just as able as you are to earn your money. So
I
I
think
think,
they
yeah,
want everybody to be the same. And I've traveled to Cuba, I've been to Venezuela, and seen where everybody is the same, but it's dragging everybody down to the lowest common
it makes everyone
denominator.
poorer, doesn't it? It
It
makes
makes
everyone
everybody
poorer.
poorer
Yeah,
in the end. Yeah,
yeah,
these awful systems. Yeah,
exactly.
that we're in.
Yeah, and to talk about a bit more on the British economy. I mean, last year's budget, Rachel Thieves, right? What do you think about her raising the minimum wage? What are your thoughts?
Personally, I think I looked at some figures on the minimum wage. Apparently, it's gone up about 70% over the last 10 years, which, wages certainly haven't gone up by that. It's easy for politicians to say, yeah, we're helping the poorest people out and everything else, but it's just an almost unviable rate now. And if you're in business, let's say you're running a small pub or something like that, where you're paying people the minimum wage, and the government is dictating to you what you have to be paying these people, eventually it becomes too much, and you're not going to be in business. You're not making a profit. So why be in business? I think there's many thousands, tens of thousands of businesses that aren't in business that would have been employing people, but because the minimum wage is set far too high by politicians who know nothing about this. I traveled to Devon and Cornwall, and I just see that a minimum wage there is completely different from a minimum wage in the southeast. It's just crazy, but they have to pay the same minimum wage, which one size should not fit all. It's just politicians tinkering with it. I'd like to see politicians get out of it altogether and leave businesses to decide what they want to pay people. Let the market dictate, for me, really. I think there was a terrible legislation that came in, really, regulating people's incomes in this way.
Yeah, I can see you more as a proponent of free market economics. I think with the minimum wage, a lot of people support a higher raising minimum wage and whatever. They think that money grows on trees. I mean, it comes out of the pockets of employers. Either way, if they're going to raise minimum wage up and up, it comes out of the employers' pockets, and they're going to have to either cut down on costs, on the price tags, price of their products and stuff, and for their clients, that could cost them a business, or they cut down on employment and actually sack a number of their employees. It's the reality of it. But I talking about small businesses and stuff. Anyone who wants to start up a cafe, a small restaurant, a little coffee shop, food truck, small tech firm, freelance graphic designer, and all that. How would you say, Edward, that these small businesses and also family businesses like farms and pubs, how would they be able to thrive in an economy that is managed by an advanced UK government?
There would be a lot freer. There'd be a lot less regulations. I also think that local authorities as well charging people to park in the town centres as well is massively going to detract from that. So there's all sorts of measures there that I would look to implement. I'd look for a lot lower tax base. There's this massive scandal at the moment where business rates are going through the roof, which is putting many businesses out of business. I think we need a proper business-friendly minister that is going to look at this and reduce a business's costs and reduce the business's regulations to be able to do what they do best and sell their products, whether it's a coffee shop or a cafe or a public house or whatever it is. Let the businesses be in business, and less rules and regulations and less tinkering by politicians looking for votes in Westminster.
Yeah, sure. It's funny that you mentioned the parking, because a lot of these town centres and that, in my town in Trowbridge here in Wiltshire, they have it everywhere. These there's a car park in the middle, and then everything around you is like a shop, kind of like a shopping centre, I guess. You got Starbucks, Costa Coffee, TK Maxx, B&M, and all these kind of mega businesses and firms and brands. And I'd say, that kind of destroys the very kind of essence of small businesses. I think they kind of monopolize the whole economic sector. So what would you think about the presence of big businesses,
business rates in town centres,
big brands? Yeah. What do you think about all of that?
Town centres, I think, should be absolutely slashed to a minimum. That would hit local authorities in the purse, but local authorities, I think there's so many rules and regulations there that could be slimmed down. Local authorities do not have to be so big as they are. There's all sorts of measures there that I would like to see a shrinking of local authorities and the size of them, the staffing, their some of the DEI policies that people are employed in within these local authorities, and paid for by having virtually no business rates within town centres. Let's revive our town centres.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, but what do you think about, like, if I were to look at it as like an economic ecosystem, let's just put it that way, do you see big businesses, big brands, conglomerates, and small businesses coexisting together in one ecosystem in harmony, healthily?
A lot of the rules and regulations that have been brought in favour big businesses that have got HR departments to be able to implement all these policies that politicians have brought in, all the regulations, some of the 2010 Equalities Act, some of the rules and regulations where they have to monitor staff and find out what backgrounds they're from and all this sort of stuff. It favors big business. I would look to get rid of half the legislation since 1998, where Tony Blair was in power, that should just be repealed on day one of any government that's elected, which would probably create a lot of unemployment within some of these big HR departments, but it's the customers that should be profiting, and we don't need all these great big HR departments implementing all these rules and regulations that government has put on them, and that small businesses can't implement because they haven't got these big HR departments to monitor all the rules and regulations and legislation. So a whole simplifying of the system, which would benefit smaller businesses.
Yeah, there's too much bureaucracy and red tape, I think. I guess one advanced policies would be make small businesses big again, wouldn't it? Yeah.
I like it. Good line.
Yeah. Maybe one example of a big business, a big conglomerate corporation, Universal Studios. I'm not sure if you heard, they're going to be building in Bedfordshire. It was actually Keir Starmer who signed the contract. Universal Studios is going to be coming. They're going to start building in 2030. What do you think about Universal Studios coming to the UK?
I think it would be absolutely fantastic. I think the film industry is one of the few industries in this country where we are still a world beater. I did actually have a visit to Longcross Studios, which is in Surrey, and it's a fantastically thriving business. A lot
Oh no,
behind the
I
scenes.
meant the theme park. I meant the theme park. Sorry, Universal Studios.
Okay, well, that absolutely fantastic, and it's going to bring a lot of jobs and a lot of employment to the area. So I think it's going to be a tremendous asset to that area. But also the film industry is quite fascinating as well, where there's so much government subsidies involved in this, which keeps the industry going. But if it was viable, I think it wouldn't need all those subsidies to back it up and keep it going.
Yeah, sure. Yeah,
Are you a big
one
fan
of my
of
friends
theme
is.
parks and you like going to them?
No, I wanted to ask because it's a good job opportunity. It's good on CVs, and one of my friends is from Bedfordshire, so he's probably going to be watching this interview. He's quite interested to know. Um, I'd like to move on to kind of foreign relations, negotiating with foreign countries with you, Edward. Imagine if we left the ECHR, we separate the UK from all these supranational institutions, the IMF and World Trade Organization dealing, and we also dealt with the Quangos. They control 1/3 of government expenditure. I think there's like 444 of them. How would foreign relations and trading with foreign countries look like under an advanced UK government, considering that we made these sort of steps to leave these institutions?
The world is massively changing, Adrian. The United States declaring that the Western Hemisphere is their hemisphere. They'll do what they want in the Western Hemisphere now. I think we've had all this international law and the United Nations and everything else, but in reality, the big powers do what they want anyway. They always have done. With America, that's got the most powerful army, navy, air force, and they can almost do what they want. So I'd certainly be very, very, very pro-American. I think the reality of the world is you'd have to be. But advanced UK, we would be very open and welcoming to any nations. I think it would be just the same as it is now, really. I think we've got a whole history of the Commonwealth where there's lots of countries that still regard Britain in a very favourable light. So I think an advanced UK government would be very welcome on the world stage.
Mm. And do you see it like an alliance with other nationalist parties in Europe, maybe leading up to the general election? Could advanced UK contact maybe, for example, Vox in Spain? They had recently, I had 500,000, 500,000 migrants applying for legal status into the Pakistani consulate in Spain. It's terrible. I'm not sure if you read up on it. It's absolutely awful. Vox in Spain, maybe Marine Le Pen's national rally in France. Would you negotiate
all across Europe? The things are massively changing. AfD in Germany, you mentioned Marine Le Pen.
In Germany, yeah.
Even in little Finland, there's the True Finns party there. Vox in Spain. Things are transforming.
Dominic Tarczynski.
Yeah. So things are really changing across the world. And yeah, I think that these will be natural allies of advanced UK. So the order of the world is very much changing, and it's very much going. I don't like using these terms right and left wing, but centre right. That I see advanced UK as a centre right party. I think most of Europe in the next few election cycles will be going the same way.
Yeah, I think the left and right is a bit outdated. There's more of a dichotomy between the nationalist side and the globalist side, I think. But we're slowly winning the battle.
And you meant, just to recap as well, Spain as well, allowing 500,000 illegal immigrants, Spanish nationality. I mean, that is just like we are just shooting ourselves in the foot. I mean, talk about trying to buy votes by the governing party there. This is almost a disaster, on the same as Angela Merkel allowing mass uncontrolled immigration to Germany. We're going to pay for this in decades to come now. These crazy decisions of these socialists clinging to power, trying to buy votes.
Yeah, I was pretty shocked when I saw that article. Um, yeah, I want to talk about the Chagos Islands as well. That's probably your favorite topic, actually. What are your thoughts on Labour's decisions on Diego Garcia, the Chagos Islands being handed over, Gibraltar, perhaps? And how would Advanced UK fix this absolute disaster?
I mean, is this the thin end of the wedge? By giving away a British overseas territory like the Chagos Islands to Mauritius, the distance from the Chagos Islands to Mauritius is such a vast. It's like somebody in London, the distance there to St. Petersburg in Russia. And it's like you, Adrian, giving away your house that you own to somebody else in St. Petersburg in Russia and renting it back off them and then trying to tell people, look, I've done a great deal. People would say, Adrian, you've gone absolutely crazy. You know, what on earth are you doing here? But we're doing it on a national scale, and there's talk of costing £35 billion to rent what we already own off Mauritius. It's just truly craziest deal going. But thankfully, the Americans at this last minute have got involved. Misley Mandarin, who is, I've got massive regards for Misley. Misley wasn't born on the Chagos Islands. His family were evicted, and he was born in Mauritius. But he's found his way to Crawley in Britain, and he served in the British Army. Misley Mandarin is the first minister in exile of the Chagos Islands. So Misley has written a letter to Donald Trump, and it's Donald Trump has noticed it and realized that the big American base there in the Indian Ocean, Diego Garcia, is jeopardizes the security of this massive American base that's there. So Donald Trump has made a few phone calls to Keir Starmer and is pretty much, hopefully, told Keir Starmer, you're not going to do this. This is not against what we want, so you're not going to do it. And hopefully the deal isn't going to go ahead. But I see it as the thin end of the wedge. How about Argentina now, the Falkland Islands, seeing this utter weakness and how much we've ran down our military capability? Argentina will be eyeing up the Falkland Islands and maybe try to take that back again. Keir Starmer's been so weak and useless with the European Union. He's given control now over the border of Gibraltar to the European unions to administer the border when it was jointly administered between Spain and Britain. So everywhere we look, our enemies are seeing weakness from this terrible Labour government. And you know, where there's a void, and throughout history, wherever there's been a void, people are looking to take advantage of it, and it's no different now. This is the reality of the world situation, and Mauritius is a terrible surrender deal, and I think more people should be.
They're a puppet of the Chinese Communist Party.
Yeah. We talked about this super embassy that's been built in London, close to some very strategic cables that could be hacked into. And you know, why does China need such a great big embassy in London? I think a lot of dissidents from Hong Kong, from China, are very, very scared of all this influence that China is gaining over us. And just as an aside, we're getting all these demonstrations now in London for the Palestinian territories. How about Tibet? Why aren't there demonstrations in London for Tibet? Tibet was annexed by the Chinese Communist Party and has been ethnically cleansed by the Han Chinese that have been incentivized to move there and take over the country and get rid of the native Tibetans. How come that's not even mentioned by these virtue signaling marches that are going on through our big cities at the moment? You know, I mean, the answer is because nobody's taught this in history, or nobody's taught this in our education system, which has been run down and dumbed down to the so that everybody gets a qualification nowadays. I digress,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean that's my thoughts on the Chagos Islands.
Yeah, I mean, giving over Chagos is essentially giving it over to China.
Yeah.
I mean, talking about China, what would a relationship with China look like under an advanced UK government, if there is any relationship?
It would be cordial, we'd be friends, but you've got to be very suspicious of some of the activity that's going on. I've got friends in the Philippines. There's a big dispute between China, who is building up islands in the South China Seas. Taiwan is in constant threat from invasion, which is truly terrifying. What would happen there? Lots going on in the world at the moment. But the answer to your question would be friendly to everybody in the world, and the Chinese will be no different. But we wouldn't be so naive as to allow them to build a great big embassy next to some incredibly valuable cables. I think that's just crazy.
Yeah, we certainly won't take an example from Starmer taking a knee to Winnie the Pooh. Yeah, if you were to circle this conversation around, we talked a lot about the British economy. We've talked about, there's quite a broad list of topics around the economy and how money should flow, and jobs and wages and businesses and stuff. Ultimately, I think circling round to the first point you made, the number one issue is immigration. Uncontrolled immigration. And that's why Advanced UK's first policy is on immigration. I'm sure you actually already know the immigration policy, but I'm not going to let anyone spill the beans right now. It's going to be announced on the 7th of February in London. I'm going to be there. Are you going to be there, Edward?
Yes, I'll be there, yeah.
That's brilliant. Yeah. And for our viewers, Advanced UK supporters and members, I'm sure once that policy is announced, some people will have a mixed range of views. Some people will approve of it, some people will love it, some people will think, you know what, I want to leave feedback on that, I want to make a suggestion. How about I actually communicate my concerns about the policy? So, Edward, are you aware of any opportunity or platform or sort of portal for members in advance to be able to leave feedback, to give their views on this policy?
There are many areas on the Advance UK website. There's you can email in your thoughts on what's happening, and a lot of people are. There's the by-election in Gorton and Denton at the moment. I think there's a few people feeding back information about that, which is quite interesting. But also, most of the high-ranking people within Advance UK, we're all on X. Ben Habib, I know, reads his X comments. He gets a lot of people on there. I've got I'm on X myself, so we can receive feedback through that. It's always interesting. Even I like to think of myself as well read. I like to read The Guardian and The Independent. I sometimes look at the BBC just to see what other people think about things. So it's all the feedback is more than welcome.
Sure. Yeah. And imagine if we, hypothetically speaking, if we actually were able to deliver this policy on day one of Advanced UK getting into government, how would Advanced UK communicate to the British public that addressing and prioritizing immigration and cutting immigration will be a long-term benefit for the UK, in your view? How do you communicate that to people who might potentially disagree with you entirely?
And there will be. There are a lot of vested interest in this. There's a whole industry now that's built up over looking after all these illegal immigrants, and people are making a lot of money out of this. Civil servants are making whole business empires through this, administering illegal and legal immigration. I think the Overton window. This is the acceptable. 3 or 4 years ago, if you'd have talked about re-immigration and getting rid of illegal immigrants in this country, you'd have been made out to be a massive racist, fascist, Nazi. I think it's almost acceptable now in lots of circles to be talking about this. The Overton window is moving, and people are able to discuss this, and it is openly being discussed. I think even Labour politicians in these red wall seats, where a lot of their constituents really are concerned about mass immigration. Lots of Labour politicians are talking about this. I think a lot of this work will have been done before any general election. A lot of this will be the whole thrust of Advance UK's policy. You look on the statistics at the moment. Most of the electorate's main concern is mass uncontrolled immigration. So, you know, it's really is high up there on the political agenda at the moment, and I think it's only going to grow and grow up on the political agenda over the next weeks and months and years to the next general election, and everybody will be very aware about it.
Yeah, and I think this by-election in Gorton Denton is it's going to be pretty indicative of the British electorate and their attitudes. It's a good testing ground for what the people think about all of this. I wanted to actually talk about the by-election with you, but we've covered so many topics and I'm run out of time. But I'll catch up to you in London, talk about the by-election. I think that's really important. Nick Buckley, he has my vote, I think. But I'll talk about him in a bit more detail in London with you.
And I would just urge everybody in that constituency, Gorton and Denton, just look at it and you know, don't just vote blindly for a party. Look at the personalities, and you know, we've got this Greek woman now that she is Greek. She was born in Greece. That's the Labour Party are putting up. This plumber that the Greens have found. She's not a plumber. She lives in one of the wealthiest areas of Manchester. She's not on the gas safety register of plumbers, so she's no plumber. It's just nonsense. Nick Buckley.
She works as a technician for one of those solar energy heaters or something. Yeah. She's a complete scam.
Yeah, it's a fraud, isn't it? I mean, do these political parties really think the people are that stupid? Matt Goodwin, who I do quite like for reform, I think he's done a 180 over. He used to write for the Guardian, and he's very left wing, but I do like Matt Goodwin now. I think he's a good, capable chap, and he's the reform candidate, but. You know, he doesn't have anything to do with Gorton, and Denton. He's an academic. He's you know, certainly not a working class lad that he's trying to make out. And he's just been parachuted into that seat. If he gets elected, it'll be just like Nigel Farage in Clacton. They'll never see him for the whole 12 months. But a local guy, the Advance UK candidate, Nick Buckley, is born and bred pretty much in that area. He went to school there. He's had commendations from the police force for helping out people. He's set up charities that have assisted the homeless in that area. He lives not far from there. He's look at the personalities. Look who's going to help that community. And I just think you can't find a better candidate than Nick Buckley.
Exactly. Yeah, same for me. If I was living in Manchester, I would that constituency, I would vote for Nick, regardless of whichever political party, because it's not about Advance UK. It's about the person, isn't it? His qualities, capabilities, skills. He developed a charity all on his own with his own money, and he's done a lot of good things. You know, what has Matt Goodwin done as academically qualified as he is? But we'll let the people decide on that. Yeah, we talked about the economy. We talked about immigration. Maybe just touch really quickly on Britain's two-tier policing and justice. So, Edward, I didn't tell you about this earlier. Recently, my brother and I, we took a visit down to Salisbury Cathedral, and we had a look at the Magna Carta. It's absolutely beautiful, that inside of the cathedral. You step in there, it's really kind of it has this ethereal sort of atmosphere, and I really, really enjoyed it. And yeah, the Magna Carta is just steeped in history. It still exists today, technically, but it's just being trampled under this current government. And I stumbled upon one of their platforms. It read the two most important clauses, number 39 and 40, and it says as such: due legal process. No free man shall be seized or imprisoned or stripped of his rights or possessions or outlawed, exiled, or deprived of standing in any other way. Nor will we proceed with force against him or send others to do so, except by the lawful judgment of his equals or by the law of the land. And the explanation behind this is that it is the most famous of the clauses in Magna Carta, and it's still part of UK law today. Yeah, right. And they recognize that people should be treated fairly and have the right to trial by jury. Edward, can you describe how our current judicial system is conducive to what's being presented and stipulated in the Magna Carta?
800 years of tradition, because that's when it was first signed by the barons forced King John to sign it. 800 years of tradition that this government now is trying to get rid of juries. It's just chipping away at all the rights that people have fought for throughout our history. And this is just getting rid of juries, trying with the pretense of trying to save money, when there's lots of empty courtrooms that are inefficiently used. The bureaucracy of the whole lot. So I'm certainly would never ever get rid of juries. I think it would just be a massive allowing a judge to make judgment over whether somebody is innocent or guilty, when we have so many activist judges out there. I saw after the Epping, the judge that ruled on the Epping, that they decided that the protesters had less rights than the asylum seekers, and the asylum seekers should be allowed to stay at that Epping holding centre there, or the Epping Hotel, should I say. It's not a holding centre, it's a hotel. So activist judges getting involved in this is against our history and our traditions. So you mentioned the Magna Carta, and an incredibly important document in our history.
Yeah, it's a real shame. It's a real shame. It's absolutely just, and also like the two-tierness as well. So many people are noticing it.
After the football match the football match in Aston,
yeah, the Maccabi Tel Aviv, exactly. Yeah,
the head of the West Midlands Police negotiating with the elders of the community, and deciding that we're not going to allow a Jewish football team to bring their supporters to watch a football match in our second city, Birmingham. I mean, if there isn't a clearer example of two-tier policing than that, quite staggering decision.
He should be sacked. He should have been sacked. He was forced to retire, wasn't he?
Yeah.
It's absolutely unbelievable. I mean, I look at Lucy, like comparing, the encroachment of free speech and real crimes. Someone like Lucy Connolly gets 31 months. Peter Lynch, he sadly died, God bless him, 32 months. And then on the other hand, you got Ricky Jones, the guy who told reform supporters to their throats. I'm not going to say it. Those Manchester Airport scumbags, they roam free. Ricky Jones roamed free. They attacked those armed police officers at Manchester Airport. And a whole list of PDF offenders. You know what I'm talking about, PDF offenders who commit SA on girls. There was just one example. It really screamed out aloud to me when I read the article. I was pretty shocked, despite me knowing about the two-tier policing and justice in this country. It happened in Lancashire. I believe it was an area called Preston. There was these two men of, I think it was Afghani origin. They were delivering this TV unit to a house, and the one who answered the door was a 14-year-old girl. And Edward, I don't have to explain what happens next, right? Guess how long their sentence was? Each of them got 2.5 years. That's 30 months.
Yeah.
So you SA, a 14-year-old girl, you get 30 months. Lucy Connolly, 31 months. Make it make sense for me, Edward.
Like Tommy Robinson.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
He was actually put in prison for a civil matter as well. I think he should have been fined. Really, there's all sorts of anomalies within the system. Non-crime hate incidents as well that the police waste not just thousands of hours. There are actually millions of hours that our police force are spending on non-crime hate incidents, which I find just truly staggering. So on day one of any advanced government, these laws will be repealed. It's just, the police talk about not having resources, but they've got resources to put into to thought crimes, effectively non-crime hate incidents, and sending several police officers around to people's houses to discuss posts that they put on internet posts, and unbelievable, really, how and as you say, how they're dealt with through the court system. Crazy, absolute madness. The whole system is completely topsy-turvy. Justice should be blind. If you committed the crime, you should be given, men and women should be given the same sentence. It's just a total abomination to be giving different communities and different people with different sexualities. It's even got, that's how ridiculous it's got now. They're given separate sentences. The whole judiciary is just topsy-turvy.
Yeah, and I think that's why all of these demonstrations, you know, in Crowborough and Southampton, I went to that one. Everywhere across the country, these demos and rallies, they're being set up because people are just fed up. You know, it's just the unfairness, the unjust nature of these cases, with especially in the Epping as well, Hadush Kibatu. That was pretty ridiculous. Yeah,
and they're growing and growing. This isn't going to go away for the government. These demonstrations are just going to grow and grow. And for anybody out there demonstrating and thinking we're not really getting anywhere, I think you are. Everybody that turns up to those, the government is going to have to start taking notice and changing things. So let's keep the pressure up. Let's keep out there and demonstrate. And the government is listening. I know they are listening, and things, I think, will have to change.
Sure. Yeah, we covered a lot of topics today, Wood. I just wanted to thank you for coming on. I'll ask you a fun question, then we'll wrap things up. Just one last question. What are your thoughts on Amelia?
Well, for one, Keir Starmer can't arrest Amelia and put her in prison. Which, if you or me said half the things that Amelia says, we'd probably be, on facing trial, wouldn't we? I think she's absolutely brilliant. I think it's a breath of fresh air. We've turned the tables. Amelia originally was a meme put out by the government to stop children getting indoctrinated by the supposed far right that's out there. But she's taken a life of her own on and become a massive internet hit. And yeah, I think she's brilliant. Some of the things she said, I think young boys especially would really listening to Amelia's message, and then going away and doing research on it, and it's really opening people's eyes. I think it's a great idea. Well done to the creators of Amelia.
Yeah, I see all these memes and posts on X and like AI videos and even music videos as well. It's really quite creative. I think it captures the kind of right-wing, nationalist kind of mentality for the nation. I think it's good for patriotism. So yeah, thank you for taking your precious time out of your day, Edward, to come on, and I'll catch up with you in London.
Great. It's been really great. And everybody that's out there, I think Guardian Mo's YouTube channel, let's everybody that's watched this video, let's like and subscribe to it. Let's build this channel. This guy's done some fantastic work. Look at some of his previous videos. Nothing but admiration for Adrian and Guardian Mo's his channel.
Thanks a lot, Edward. I'll end the record button, and then we'll speak a bit more behind the scenes. But thank you to my viewers. If you enjoyed today's video, leave a comment down below. I'll see you in the next one.